Funding for this video series was made possible by the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture's Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program.
My name's Dave Redfearn. My wife and I run Where the Redfearn Grows Natural Farms. We've got 15 acres here. We grow on about 1.5 acres. So yeah, we have 4 high tunnels on our farm, and I wish I had more. So for cucumbers, we've moved all cucumber production indoors. I don't grow any cucumbers outside anymore. That's mostly due to the cucumber beetle, which we have in tremendous numbers out here. And those cucumber beetles will wreck the plants and wreck the product quality too. They'll nibble on the outside and make them ugly. We transplant all of our cucumbers. We start them from seed, 3 weeks old. We transplant. Cucumbers are kind of tough to transplant. You got to really baby the roots and gently set them in, and don't bury them too deep, and then really water them. We'll oftentimes cover them with shade cloth and wire hoops for the first week or two to let them get established, and then we start trellising them.
I'm John.
I'm Austin.
And we're Green Thumbs Up.
We're 2 family farms that joined together to form one produce business. We grow seasonal vegetables.
So Green Thumbs Up is a 50-50 partnership between me and Austin. We're classified as an LLC, and we love growing vegetables. Most of the vegetable production's on less than 1 acre, and then we do kind of expand for pumpkins and vining crops. We kind of got too big for our farmers markets, and we thought it'd be a lot easier to sell things ahead of time. And so it was just the right situation for us, and we were ready to grow more. I think a lot of times when people think scaling up, you're gonna need a lot more acreage than you do. And sometimes all you need is just like that 30 by 72 high tunnel. Because if you're managing that correctly, I mean, you can be picking 500 pounds of cucumbers every single week. And there's no way you're gonna sell 500 pounds of cucumbers at a small farmer's market every single week. There's 3 types of cucumbers that we focus on, and that's our pickling cucumbers, slicing cucumbers, and English cucumbers. For fresh markets, we focus more on English cucumbers, pickling cucumbers, and some slicers. But for wholesale, we stick to slicing cucumbers. I think that's just what the market's looking for. There's a couple different ways you can trellis. There's like a follow the leader method where you can drop the vine and have it go one direction, or you can just have the vine circle on the ground. But either way works. You just gotta add in that labor of cutting off leaves or dropping, because throughout the course of a week, that does gobble up a few hours. But your cucumbers will produce more, you'll have more for a longer period of the season, so it is worth it in the long run.
We're here at Moyer Farms. I've always grown up on a specialty crop farm. Ever since I was a kid, we grew a lot of specialty crops and went to farmers markets. And then after I went to school, got an outside job, and then came back about 5 or 6 years ago and started our own farm here. And we raise about 60 to 70 acres of vegetables every year, depending on different stuff with pumpkins and different crops we grow. But we concentrate on tomatoes and cucumbers, zucchini yellow squash. And as far as cucumber production for us, we've had some stints where we've raised several acres of cucumbers at a time. You plant every couple weeks as far as a seed in a greenhouse and then transplant them in the field, and just so you have a consistent production-wise goes. And over the years, we've added some production to our greenhouses with some English varieties, the longer seedless varieties type, and then we've trellised them up. I can't say which one I would like better than the other, but it's kind of fun to do them in the greenhouse.
And the way we do it is we grow them up a string, we wrap the string, they grow up into the structure of the greenhouse, and usually I kind of throw them over the wire and they come back down. And so we've got plants, we've got cucumber plants that were planted in March, and we're still getting cucumbers off of them now in beginning of August, and they're still growing pretty strong. All of our high tunnels, we have screen on them. The main reason is to keep cucumber beetles out so we can grow cucumbers in those tunnels. So, and it works very well. And the screen we have is just rolls of regular window screen. I think it's called patio screening. It's a little bit heavier weight to handle some wind. It lasts several years. I've seen grasshoppers munch holes in it. It kind of perturbs me a little bit, but we don't have to spray for cucumber beetles in our tunnels. And they grow for a really long time. For cucumbers, we grow 3 varieties. We grow a Tasty Jade, which is an Asian cucumber, kind of similar to English cucumber. I have grown an English cucumber in the past called Tyria, which is a really good cucumber, but it's not as vigorous of a plant. For me, I lose a lot of plants, and the seeds are like $1 each, and it just kills me to see these plants dying at that cost. We grow, probably my favorite cucumber is Corinto. It's just an American slicer. It has relatively small seeds and thin skin. It's a really good cucumber, but it's got a really good disease package. And of all the cucumbers I grow in the same tunnel, those are the last to eventually succumb to some kind of disease. And many times they don't. I just rip them out because they're so big and unwieldy, and I plant another round. We also grow a cucumber called Iznik, which is a snacker type cucumber. It's a Lebanese style. It's got really thin skin, pretty much seedless. It's a really good cucumber.
There's a lot of quality slicing cucumbers. You can choose greenhouse varieties if that's the system that you're going with. And if you're growing indoors, it is good to use varieties like Corinto or Bristol or Rockingham. That's some of those that we've tried indoors. But there are cheaper seed like Turbo or Speedway or Dasher. Those also can fill those spots. I would say in general that slicing cucumbers have a pretty good shelf life. So I think you could do pickling cucumbers for wholesale, but you're going to need a larger labor force or a mechanical harvester for that.
As far as cucumber production for us, on a wholesale level, it's tough because you have to have a consistent quantity all the way through the summer, and there's only so much space in a greenhouse. As far as a retail market goes, they go well, but then you also get into that situation where you have too many for a retail market, and so it's been tough to manage for me. So managing space and quantity has been the tough thing on the English side of things. This year I decided to go with Asian cucumbers in our greenhouse to try to differentiate myself in a market because some of the select cucumbers get fairly cheap.
Some of those varieties like Corinto, that's also one of the reasons it's kind of nice to grow. Corinto doesn't do nearly as many side shoots as some cucumber varieties. I have in the past pruned them, but things like Tasty Jade, they're ridiculous. They just go nuts with tons of extra branches, and so I just let them go. But they become a mess. Corinto, a lot easier to keep, but it almost naturally does a single leader. And if it branches once or twice, it's not that much. But like a Tasty Jade, it'll be like every fruit node, there'll be a leaf and a tendril and then another sucker, and so it becomes a mess pretty quick. It would be better, we would have better production if we went and spent the time pruning those. So I guess I should mention that's another reason why I like Corinto, because that's kind of a plant it and forget it, and it just grows.
If you have like a 30 by 72 high tunnel, I'd say you're going to have at least 4 to 5 hours of labor, and that's just on pruning and trellising. The picking doesn't take too long.
So in a 30 by 72 full of cucumbers, you probably get about 400 to 500 plants in there, depending on how aggressively you space them. and what kind of trellising system you're using. But it'll generally be between 400 and 500 cucumber plants.
I think it's important for a lot of growers to trial different varieties each year to see what works for you, because English cucumbers can have bigger leaves and they might need more space, and pickling cucumbers are more productive in bush varieties, so you don't really want to train them vertically, and you may want those just on a fence.
Labor for a cucumber is pretty intensive as well. By the time the staking and trellising seems to take up a lot of time for us, but it also saves time as far as harvest goes. And as far as the ability to judge and grade and sort cucumbers, it really increases your ability to pick a nice #1 cucumber, but it labor-wise intense as far as trellising and tying up a cucumber seems pretty in-depth there for a while, and it gets a little daunting. If we think there's a good market, cucumbers can get picked every day as well. If not, they're done about every other day. Sizing and packing on a cucumber, you're looking at 7-8 inch cucumber typically, depending on how big a round or diameter it has, but you're looking for that nice quality shiny fresh looking cucumber. If you're not in there every day or every couple days, you get a lot of yellowness to your cucumbers where they get too big, and then you're just selling them as kind of just some secondary pickles cucumber market.
When we pick our cucumbers, we cut them directly into the tubs, and we don't put them in a dunk tank. I know that when you go to a grocery store, you feel like the waxy residue that are on cucumbers that may come from Mexico, and they're going into a big dunk tank, and that also is a huge cesspool of disease potential. So we don't do that. We pick them dry, and that's another thing, is you want to keep them dry. The wetter they are, the more chance of infection.
Food safety on cucumbers fits in well with our operation as well. You know, it's become standard to wash and pack in a nice sanitized crate. Nothing hits the ground. We're GAP certified now on that as well. So it's just all standard there on what we do.
Cucumbers don't really need to be in the 30 to 40 degree range because it does affect their shelf life. And for us personally, if you keep it in a 55 degree cooler, you know, it can last 1 to 2 weeks easily, even though for us, we usually pick and sell them within a couple of days.
We typically don't like to store anything more than 24 hours, ideally.
We have a walk-in cooler that we keep at 55 degrees. We just cool with an air conditioner, not with a cool bot, just a straight air conditioner. And they like 50 degrees. I mean, you can keep them in the refrigerator, but if it's at 32 degrees, that can be, injurious to cucumbers, and they won't last as long.
Storage for our cukes are the same too, that we're trying to move them out as fast as we can. We try not to keep everything, but they'll go in a cooler as well. And we've had that cooler set at a pretty consistent 45 to 50 degree mark. That's kind of a happy medium for everything we grow there.
You go to the grocery store, your slicing cucumbers are a certain size and a certain shape, and those are the ones we want to put in our wholesale packaging. You know, some of the irregular ones, you can sell at the farmer's market because your customers are going to be a little forgiving on that. But for wholesale, to get them in the box, you want them the right size because the boxes are a certain size, and it makes everything easier if everything's uniform.
As far as what I would tell a beginning farmer trying to get into a wholesale market or wanting to do on a larger scale, I would say just keep your quality up, keep doing what you do, and have a plan. You know, don't go into it blind. The biggest thing would be talk to your wholesalers, figure out what they want, figure out varieties, figure out packaging, figure out distribution, and then labor. Make sure you have enough labor, and figure out what that market actually is that you're going after before you decide you're going to go into it. Because if you don't have a plan, it's really tough to adjust mid-season, and it can be costly. Weather's costly enough if you don't, and just start out with a plan and just keep growing good quality produce.